introduce yourself. So, അടുത്ത് പറഞ്ഞാൽ മതി. ബി എഫ് എ പെയിൻറ്റിങ്.
Chris, sculpture third year.
ബി എ
Sculpture theory. Angel. Sculpture theory.
തേർഡ് ഇയർ.
Sculpture theory.
തേർഡ് ഇയർ.
KV, applied arts and theory.
ജിതിൻ ബി എ കഴിഞ്ഞു. കൃഷ്ണപ്രിയ.
ഞാനിപ്പോൾ 4th ഇയർ ആർട്ടിസ്ട്രി പഠിക്കുക തൃശ്ശൂരിൽ.
തൃശ്ശൂർ കണ്ടിട്ടുണ്ട് തൃശ്ശൂർ.
നമ്മൾ ഇൻ്റർസെക്ഷൻ
ആ റൈറ്റ് 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 റൈറ്റ്.
ആ ഒരു ധന്യയുടെ ഒപ്പം വർക്ക്ഷോപ്പിൽ.
നീതു.
നീതു.
ഞാൻ ബിനാലെ ABC പ്രൊജക്റ്റിൽ വർക്ക് ചെയ്യാം. ബ്ലേസിൻ്റെ
ഒരു ബ്ലേസ് ഞാൻ ആർട്ടിസ്റ്റാണ്. ABC ആർട്ട് ബൈ ചിൽഡ്രൻ പ്രോഗ്രാമിൻ്റെ
ഭഗത്, തൃശ്ശൂർ ഫൈൻ ആർട്സ് കോളേജിൽ സ്കൾപ്ചർ ഡിപ്പാർട്ട്മെൻറ്റിൽ വർക്ക് ചെയ്യാം.
സന്തോഷ്, ഗവേഷകനാണ്, കാലടി സംസ്കൃത സർവകലാശാലയിൽ മലയാളം.
ശ്രാവൺ, അപ്ലൈഡ് ആർട്ടാണ്.
ബി എ
അപ്ലൈഡ് ആർട്ട്.
വിച്ച് ഇയർ?
4th ഇയർ.
ജിതിൻ, 4th ഇയർ പെയിൻറ്റിങ്.
രണ്ട് ജിതനുണ്ടല്ലേ?
ആഞ്ചലോ, 4th ഇയർ സ്കൾപ്ചർ.
രഞ്ജിത്ത്, 4th ഇയർ പെയിൻറ്റിങ്.
മേഘ ആർട്ടിസ്റ്റ്
കഴിഞ്ഞു.
ആബ്സെൻ BFA
കഴിഞ്ഞു.
അപർണ, ഫസ്റ്റ് ഇയർ പെയിൻറ്റിങ്.
ഷുറിഹാൻ, 2nd ഇയർ പെയിൻറ്റിങ്.
കാവ്യ, MFA പെയിൻറ്റിങ്.
MFA.
അനഘ, MFA പെയിൻറ്റിങ്.
You are telling for her. Okay.
ആരതി, MFA പെയിൻറ്റിങ്.
MFA പെയിൻറ്റിങ്. MFA കാര് പുറകിലാണല്ലേ?
ഋഷികേശ്, BFA third year സ്കൾപ്ചർ.
അനന്തകുമാർ, BFA 4th ഇയർ സ്കൾപ്ചർ.
അഞ്ജു, 2nd ഇയർ പെയിൻറ്റിങ്.
I cannot see you. Okay.
എൻ്റെ ഒരു മനു. ഞാനിവിടെ BFA കഴിഞ്ഞ വർഷം പെയിൻറ്റിങ് ആയിരുന്നു.
എൻ്റെ പേര് അലിൻ, BFA പെയിൻറ്റിങ് ആണ്.
ഏത് വർഷം?
ഫൈനൽ ഇയർ.
ആദിത്യ, 4th ഇയർ പെയിൻറ്റിങ്.
സന്ദീപ്, MFA ഫസ്റ്റ് ഇയർ
സ്കൾപ്ചർ പെയിൻറ്റിങ്. അപ്പോൾ ഇപ്പോൾ MFA എത്ര കുട്ടികളുണ്ട് ഇവിടെ? വിഷ്ണു. എത്ര കുട്ടികളുണ്ട് ഇപ്പോൾ മൊത്തത്തിൽ? Okay, everybody have the text, right? Open the text. Walter Benjamin, the work of art in the age of mechanical reproduction, sometimes translated as mechanical reproducibility, but generally called as mechanical reproduction. So I just want any of you have read the text already? ആരൊക്കെ വായിച്ചത് ഓൾറെഡി? ആ, ആരൊക്കെ വായിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ട്? വായിച്ചിട്ടില്ലാരും? വായിച്ചു? എന്തെങ്കിലും സംശയം ഉണ്ടോ വായിച്ചിട്ട്? ആ, ഉണ്ടല്ലേ? സംശയം ചോദിച്ചോളൂ, ഒന്ന് തുടങ്ങാം. പാടാണോ? ട്രൈ. സംശയം ചോദിക്കുക, അപ്പോൾ നമുക്ക് തുടങ്ങാം. വാൾട്ടർ ബെഞ്ചമിൻ്റെ ഇൻട്രൊഡക്ഷൻ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് അറിയാമല്ലോ. വാൾട്ടർ ബെഞ്ച് ഒരു ജർമ്മൻ ഫിലോസഫർ ആയിരുന്നു. ആർഗ്യുബിളി ഏറ്റവും ഒറിജിനലായിട്ടൊരു തിങ്കറായിരുന്നു 20th സെഞ്ച്വറിയിൽ ഉണ്ടായിരുന്ന. 48 വയസ്സിൽ മരണമടഞ്ഞു. ആത്മഹത്യ ചെയ്യുകയാണ് ചെയ്തത്. പുള്ളി എഴുതിയെന്ന സംഭവയുടെ പുള്ളി was trying to escape from the Nazi Gestapo and couldn't manage to cross the border because the Franco Spain planned to return the people back to Paris, and fearing that he will get caught by the Gestapo, he died in a hotel room. He suicided in the hotel room. So only 48 years he lived because he doesn't want to go to the concentration camp. So that is a kind of a brief biography of Benjamin. Benjamin is known for his work with regard to aesthetics. Today Benjamin is known more to do with what we today know as affect theory. He is one of the early exponents of what is today known as the affect theory. How more than the discourse, how we understand the world through our sensorial experiences. So Benjamin is somebody who really explored the sensorial dimension of life. Or നമ്മുടെ സെൻസസ് കൊണ്ട് എങ്ങനെ സെൻസസിൻ്റെ ഒരു ഡയമെൻഷൻ ഏറ്റവും കൂടുതൽ എക്സ്പ്ലോർ ചെയ്തൊരു ഫിലോസഫറാണ്. അപ്പോൾ പുള്ളി എക്സ്പ്ലോർ ചെയ്തത് പലപ്പോഴും പുള്ളി അതുപോലെ തന്നെ ഞാൻ വളരെ ആർട്ടിസ്റ്റുകളോട് അടുത്ത് വർക്ക് ചെയ്തൊരു മനുഷ്യനാണ്. പുള്ളി ജർമ്മൻ എക്സ്പ്രഷനിസത്തിൻ്റെയൊക്കെ വളരെ അടുത്ത പങ്കാളിയായിരുന്നു. ഏറ്റവും അടുത്ത ഫ്രണ്ടായിരുന്നു ബെർത്തോൾഡ് ബ്രെക്റ്റ്, ദ ഫേമസ് പ്ലേ റൈറ്റ്. He also wrote a lot about Bertolt Brecht. He also wrote a full book on surrealism. So he was considered as one of the founding philosophers of surrealism, very close associates of many surrealist artists. The most well-known work of Benjamin is an unfinished work, very big volume of work. He was planning to publish a volume, finally came out after his death. His friends Ernest Bloch and others actually kind of put that together. It is called Arcade Project. It is a study on how cityscape function, how city operate itself in human being, how city conditions experiences. So it's a kind of a study about the visuality of the city. The aesthetical here, I will explain what he meant by the aesthetical. Aesthetical is not used the way in which we generally use the word aesthetics. It is not used in order to talk anything about the beautiful. Aesthetical is understood more in terms of a sensorial capacity, a capacity that we spend in the everyday. In our everyday reckoning with the world, everyday engagement with the world. So it is not understood in terms of studying art object. It is understood in much broader sense, which I will discuss in detail later. So that is a kind of so his well-known, the first English published book is called Illumination, that cover you might have seen. That is the book that is a compilation of Benjamin's writing, put together by another important philosopher, Hannah Arendt. Hannah Arendt was a close friend of both Heidegger and Benjamin. So even though both of them belong to the same time, both of them are politically very, very different people, Heidegger and Benjamin. Benjamin was a Marxist, Marxist philosopher, not in a conventional Marxist sense. He is also deeply interested in Jewish mysticism. So it's a combination of mysticism plus Marxian dialectics. So this is a very rare combination. We hardly see in Marxism such kind of a combination because it is largely a materialistic dialectical principle that Marxism follows. But Benjamin had a very different investment in the question of religiosity, mysticism, ascetic practices, especially his close friend and another writer, philosopher, Scholem. Both of them actually worked intensely on the question of mysticism, Jewish mysticism. So, in that sense, Benjamin is a very unusual thinker. Died very young, 48 years old, but arguably one of the most influential philosophers of 20th century. So that is the kind of background. One famous essay all of you should read, we are not going to read it here, it's called Thesis on the Philosophy of History. It's a very important essay to read since it is not actually directly linked to the broader thematic of the conference. We are not going to read that text, but all of you try to read that text. Thesis on the Philosophy of History. It is a very, very interesting text to read. So let us kind of begin with this text. So what are the doubts that you have? I think we can only unpack the first part of the essay today. We can start with the prologue. If one of you can read it out. You can avoid the citation by Paul Valéry. We will come back to that later, but just start with the preface. Read it aloud, one of you. Anyone, just reading it out.
Marx directed his efforts in such a way as to give them prognostic value. He went back to the basic conditions underlying capitalistic production and through his presentation showed what could be expected of capitalism in the future. The result was that one could expect it not only to exploit the proletariat with increasing intensity, but ultimately to create conditions which would make it possible to abolish capitalism itself. The transformation of superstructure, which takes place far more slowly than that of the substructure, has taken more than half a century to manifest in all areas of culture, the change in conditions of production. Only today can it be indicated what forms this has taken. Certain prognostic requirements should be met by these statements. However, these about the art of the proletariat after its assumptions of power, or about the art of the classless society, would have less bearing on these demands than these about than the thesis about the developmental tendencies of art under present conditions of production. Their dialectic is no less noticeable in the superstructure than in the economy. It would therefore be wrong to underestimate the value of such theses as weapon. They brush aside a number of outmoded concepts such as creativity and genius, eternal value and mystery concepts, whose uncontrollable and at the present almost uncontrolled and at present most uncontrollable application would lead to a processing of data in the fascist sense. The concepts which are introduced into the theory of art in what follows differ from the more familiar terms, in that they are completely useless for the purposes of fascism. They are, on the other hand, useful for the formulation of revolutionary demands in the politics of art.
Yeah. What did you understand from this? Any thoughts? മലയാളത്തിൽ പറഞ്ഞാൽ മതി, എന്താ വെച്ചാൽ ഇംഗ്ലീഷ് പറയാൻ പാടാണെന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ. What is it trying to say in the prologue? Just try. We are just experimenting, so you can say anything what you understood. It's not that you have to be correct. 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 Anyone, please. Already. So what is first of all, just think about what is a mode of production means. Capitalist mode of production, he is saying. What exactly it means?
Reproducing, like making copies of one thing after the other. Could that be?
No, mode of production actually is an economics term that if you have studied economics in the school or college level, you know that there are couple of terminologies are used. One is mode of production, another one is means of production and conditions of production. Modes of production എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ ഒരു മലയാളത്തിൽ മോഡ്സ് പറഞ്ഞ ഉൽപാദന വ്യവസ്ഥ, ഒരു വ്യവസ്ഥയാണത് മോഡ് ഓഫ് പ്രൊഡക്ഷൻ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ. ഇപ്പോൾ ക്യാപിറ്റലിസം എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ഒരു മോഡ് ഓഫ് പ്രൊഡക്ഷനാണ്, ഫ്യൂഡലിസം എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് വേറൊരു മോഡ് ഓഫ് പ്രൊഡക്ഷനാണ്, ഇപ്പോൾ സ്ലേവറി എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് വേറൊരു മോഡ് ഓഫ് പ്രൊഡക്ഷനാണ്. അപ്പോൾ ഈ ക്യാപിറ്റലിസ്റ്റ് മോഡ് ഓഫ് പ്രൊഡക്ഷൻ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ in a nutshell, it is that something largely an industrial mode of production. From agrarian to the industrial mode of production. Feudalism is largely an agrarian production. But capitalism is a industrial mode of production. So mode of production changes from feudalism to capitalism. Feudalism was largely an agrarian economy. Capitalism is largely an industrial economy. മാർക്സ് ഈ ക്യാപിറ്റലിസത്തെ പറ്റിയിട്ട് പഠിക്കുന്ന സമയത്ത് ക്യാപിറ്റലിസം എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് വളരെ ഇൻഫൻസിലായിരുന്നു, വളരെ തുടങ്ങുന്ന സമയത്താണ്. ഇൻഡസ്ട്രിയലൈസേഷനൊക്കെ ശരിക്കും പറഞ്ഞാൽ യൂറോപ്പിൽ തുടങ്ങുന്ന സമയത്താണ് കാൾ മാർക്സ് ക്യാപിറ്റലിസത്തെ പറ്റി പഠിക്കുന്നത്. അപ്പോൾ മാർക്സിൻ്റെ വാദം ഇതായിരുന്നു, വളരെ വളരെ പ്രൊഫൗണ്ടായിട്ടുള്ള വാദമാണ് കാൾ മാർക്സ് ഉന്നയിച്ചത്. His argument is that even though the world largely remain as agrarian, the modes of production has changed. Now the world is going to be understood through the prism of capitalism itself. So let me explain what exactly it means. If you think about the question of labor, how do we do labor in a farm economy, in an agrarian economy, is that you largely work for a feudal lord. You are more stable in the sense that you are more static. You stay in a place, you work for a landlord as a laborer. Either you get some kind of wages from the landlord, or you get a portion of the product that you produce. So if you produce 10 kilogram of grain, you may get 2 kilogram of grain as your wage, or you get a certain amount of other goods as your wage. You work, for instance, you work sometimes people work from morning to the dawn. രാവിലെ എപ്പോഴാണ് സൂര്യൻ ഉദിക്കുന്നത് വൈകുന്നേരം വരെ വർക്ക് ചെയ്യും. You are fully engrossed into that kind of a society. So basically a society that is more static, our notion of time is different, our notion of labor is different. The labor is always tied to a land, a particular landlord, and so on and so forth. With capitalism, what happens is that this notion of capitalism is a dynamic structure in comparison with feudalism, because capitalism emerged through mercantilism, trade. So earlier capitalism we call mercantile capitalism. Renaissance, for instance, actually is the beginning of the mercantile capitalism. A new class is emerging, a more powerful class, people with more power in terms of they won't produce anything. The traders are actually somebody who buy something from somewhere. They will transport that to some other location, sell it there with a margin, a profit margin, and they get money. They will come back to the land because they have extra money through profit. You buy more goods and then you transport to another location. Again you sell. Then you keep on getting profit. So what happens is that you accumulate wealth through that. So you are not really producing something. Basically you are the one actually trading what is produced. So trading actually means you have to travel. You have to move out. So that is where actually people need to develop roads, transportation systems. So our technological advancement happened because the society is transformed from a static agrarian society to a society that trade things. So it all began with trade and accumulation of capital, but then demand increases, so then which eventually lead to how to produce things in large number, because the agrarian model of production actually means you largely rely on human force alone, handcraft. Agrarian economy would be, there will be farmers, there will be people who are making tools for that farming, there are people who, so the entire economy, the belief system, everything is dependent on the farm. There are craft people there, so everything is connected to that. They don't need that much of transport in that sense, because they are actually self-sustained within a system. With the trade, what happens actually, like people are suddenly moving out, whereas more money is getting accumulated. So which led to the more centralized production. So one impact of mercantile capital to capital is that the transportation and communication become two important things that you have developed. Because to trade, you need to develop faster communication, faster transportation system. Very clear? So there is a dynamic in that sense, because it is expanding. It's an expansive logic. But the other one is a more a closed logic. Feudalism is a closed logic. Capitalism is an expansive logic. So what happens is that capitalism wants to produce more. If you produce more, you can sell more. Selling more actually means you have more margin. You can actually have more capital. You can produce more. You can sell more. It's a kind of a chain of events. So which led to thinking about actually how to mechanize production. Mechanization actually will help for us to produce large quantities of things. So which led to people to travel to one place to another place, collect things, raw material what we call, transport it back to a center where people work together through the help of machinery and convert them into a product. Colonialism, for instance, is come through that logic, because the Europeans want both more raw materials, so they have started traveling all parts of the world to looking for more and more raw material. Then they will transfer cotton, for instance. They will come to India, collect cotton. They ship that back to Manchester, produce clothes, bring it back to the colony and sell it, and gather more profit, buy more material and more labor, more cheap labor, and produce more and more and more and more. So that is what we call capitalist accumulation of wealth. So whether Marx was talking about it, only say maybe 10% of the world even was not under direct capitalist system. Large part of the world was still under the agrarian mode. But Marx foresee the prognostic value of the capitalism. So Marx was not looking quantitatively about capital. Marx was thinking about capital qualitatively. What are the kind of differences capital is going to produce to the world? It is not merely about how much world is already converted into capital or capitalist system, but how capital system is going to change the way in which we understand the world. Is that clear? So that is the point that Benjamin is making. So even though society was largely agrarian, even though only 10% of the world, less than 10% of the world was industrial at that point in time, Marx was saying that, but there is a definitive shift that has happened in the world with the capitalist mode of production. The shift, I will explain how the shift happens. For instance, our notion of time has changed. With the advent of a modern clock system, modern time system. Today what we follow is a kind of a temporal scale, that is industrial temporal scale. Earlier, for instance, you work from whenever dawn to dusk, that is the working pattern. Now we have working hours. We have quantified time. Earlier, the experience of time was more qualitative. It is dependent on the season, the location, where you live, what kind of a climate. The time was actually intricately connected to all of that. But industrialization produced a new notion of time, the industrial time. Time became a commodity that can be transacted. So you sell your labor actually means you are selling your time. Your time, you are selling, say 8 hours you work, you will get this much of salary. So the time become a quantifiable thing. Time become homogenized. Earlier experience of time was heterogeneous. Each people, each community, each individual will experience time in their own way, their own pace. There was another kind of a psychic universe of time. But industrialization of time, actually what happens is that the time become quantifiable. Time become a transactable commodity. So the labor market, we sell our labor temporal basis. Does it make sense? So our notion of time, something fundamental to human existence, our notion of time has changed. Time become homogenized, national time, global time, Greenwich time, and so on and so forth. For instance, earlier that people adjust watch with the industrial siren, the shift. There is a siren comes, so 12 o'clock siren comes, so people readjust